brother, it's a hot day here in the Deep South, I can tell you that. Nothing like a little bit of ice cold spring water to help cool you off a little bit. We'll start a new series of videos since it's not exactly hunting, camping, or trapping weather. I'm going to talk about stupid ass game laws. And do I have a lot to say on that subject? So let's get started. All right, let's start with game law number one that I think is completely stupid. And that is, why is it illegal to snare a deer? Now, if you're a trapper, you know that you can go out, you can snare a beaver, you can snare a coon, you can snare a coyote, you can snare a possum, you can snare a mink. But somehow, if you snare a deer, you're a low-down, dirty criminal scumbag that is setting a poor example for the kids, and you're robbing from the general public, and you ought to have your privileges revoked for life. You know, that's the general reaction that you get from a lot of the outdoorsmen out there. And you'd be shocked at what a bunch of idiots a lot of people are. Now, let's say that the powers that be have decided that the idea for an upcoming deer season is every hunter should take 1 buck and 2 does, or make up any number you want, whatever the limit is. 1 deer, 5 deer, doesn't matter. Now, if I take a 7mm Magnum or a 300 Magnum and I blow a hole in a doe the size of my fist, well, that's perfectly legal. I'm setting a good example for the next generation. I'm following all the laws, and I'm well within my rights as a sportsman to do that, even though I am wasting a tremendous amount of meat. I can be an archery hunter, and if I put an arrow through a deer, I've got to take a seat and I've got to wait so that deer can run off and bleed out. And then I can trail that deer, and I'm a wonderful sportsman. And if it so happens that I make a bad shot and that deer goes off somewhere and I can't recover it, well, that just happens. It just happens. Perfectly okay. Happens. But if I take an aircraft cable snare, and that same doe, instead of putting an arrow through it and letting it bleed out, or instead of putting a 300 Win Mag through it and blowing a bunch of meat up, if I take that snare and neck snare that deer, and that deer chokes out in about 90 seconds and has a painless death, and there's not 1 ounce of meat that gets wasted, I can butcher that entire deer. Somehow, I go from being an honorable sportsman and setting a good example for the children to being a complete and total criminal scumbag that needs to be thrown in jail, needs to have all of his stuff confiscated, needs to lose his privileges of feeding himself for life. So I'm a scofflaw. I'm evil. To me, that has never made any sense. You know, and all the fuddy-duddies, I can already read the comments. If you don't like the law, mate trapper, vote for somebody that's going to change the law. Not that we ever get a freaking say on anything like this, or get to vote for the people that make those decisions for us. You know, so you get that. You know, and then there's the whole, well, what's the fair chase and the challenge of snaring a deer? Well, it's about the same as the fair chase of executing a deer 300 yards away with a high-powered centerfire rifle. That's fair chase, buddy. Isn't it? The deer's 200, 300 yards away, has no idea that you're there. You're sitting up in a shooting house with a heater, and you pull out your Creedmoor, and you shoot that deer. Then you get in your buggy and go get him, right? That's fair chase right there. That's a true application of skill. You know, and it's funny how that's perfectly okay, and that takes skill, but getting a deer to put its head through a 14-inch loop, oh, there's no skill in that, is there? There's no reading of sign in that, is there? So you see, that argument doesn't hold any water to me. Maybe it does for you, but not for me. And I'm not telling people to go out and violate the law. I'm not telling people to go snare deer. What I am saying is that the average American has turned into a fat-ass dumb shit that's incapable of thinking for themselves. It's that simple. But that's the country we live in, and that's the people we live amongst. In many cases, an illegal technique such as snaring a deer is less wasteful, it is more sporting, and it is more humane than many of the other methods of legal capture. You know, some states even have legalized spear hunting. So you can get up in a stand, and when the deer walks beneath you, you throw the spear down and you spear the deer, you know, like caveman days or something. That's perfectly okay as long as it's legal. If it's legal, it's okay. And what's okay in one state is makes you a criminal piece of crap in another state. You know, it's you cross this imaginary line on a map, and you're a worthless piece of garbage over here, and you're a honorable sportsman 15 feet across the line. It's because nobody thinks for themselves, and people are cowards. They want other people to think for them. They want other people to tell them what to do, and they want the approval of the masses. They want to fit in. They're afraid of standing up and speaking out. And it's not just with game laws. It's across the board in this country. They're afraid of being singled out and ridiculed. Well, I'm not. You know, with my health issues these days, I simply don't care anymore. And so anyway, that's all I wanted to say is stupid game law number one. Why is it okay to snare a raccoon? It's not okay to snare a deer. You think for yourself, you decide for yourself, and you make up your own mind. And don't let anybody else, me or the government, do your thinking for you. God gave you a brain. Use it. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back soon enough with another episode of this. Now, if you're interested in this type of content and you want more, a lot more, you can go to meattrapper.com, click on the button that says Poaching Manuals, and check out Walk with the Wild Man. There are 3 volumes of this book, and I can promise you this book is not only entertaining, but it is very, very educational when it comes to unconventional methods for putting food on the table. I guarantee you, you will not be disappointed. Now, small batch printing is expensive. This current printing is the last printing at the old price. So after these are gone, the next batch coming in, the price of the books are going up, and the price of postage is going up because USPS just raised their prices again. So anyway, if you're looking for some very entertaining and very educational, unconventional material when it comes to putting food on your table, check out Walk with the Wild Man.